iHeart Sports MLB 2022 Power Ranking. Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome back. Power Rankings time. We're a week and a half into the season, 3 series into the season, so it's time to do the first Power Rankings of the season. We did do one before the season started. You can go back, check that out. But we're just going to run quickly through the 30 teams, how they kind of started the season so far, and kind of where I see them. Top 2 rows are like playoff teams, middle row fighting for the playoffs, but might be on the outside looking in, probably around top 14 make the playoffs, right? Bottom 2 rows kind of not going to make the playoffs at this rate, and kind of what we're expecting. They can climb their way up, but number 30, we're not going to see them in the playoffs. We got the Cincinnati Reds, 2-2 against Atlanta, and then went 0-6 against the Dodgers and Cleveland. Just a rough start for the Reds. They had a good win on opening day against Atlanta, but after that, not a lot of promise. They're on a 6-game losing streak now, and not a lot of promise. Like I said, for this team, pretty much expect them to be battling for the Pirates in the bottom of this division. Number 29, we got the Diamondbacks, 1-3 against San Diego, 1-1 against Houston, and 1-2 against the New York Mets. Zach Gallen came back. I guess that's the pretty big highlight for Arizona. He had a pretty good outing and actually picked up the win for them on that night. But other than that, another long season probably ahead for the Diamondbacks, one of the worst teams last year. Tough division. We got 3 teams ahead of them fighting for playoff spots that they're not going to be able to compete with. So 29th, pretty secure spot for them. Number 28, we've got the Baltimore Orioles getting swept by Tampa out of the gate. They went 1-2 against Milwaukee, but they did beat the Yankees. Playing spoiler in the division already is what the Orioles look to be doing. But I'm a little bit concerned. The offense didn't quite click. Cedric Mullins isn't looking great so far. He's still getting his feet wet for the season, and they're pitching. Just they've shut down the offenses of the other side so far, but Means going down is going to be a little bit of concern. And the Orioles in this division pretty much stabled in last, I think. So keeping them at the bottom there. Number 27, we got the Oakland A's, 1-2 against Philly, 3-1 against Tampa, and 1-2 against Toronto. Pretty okay start for a team that's expected to be last in the West. We all know they sold off most of their team, their pitching, their bats. They're in that rebuild stage, and it's pretty much where we expect them to be. They seem to be competing pretty well, though, in every series they've been in, at least picking up a game. So far they have not been swept. So that is at least going for them. Pretty much expect them to stay in the bottom row here for the majority of the season. 26, we got the Washington Nationals, 1-3 against the Mets, 2-1 against the Braves, and then 1-3 against the lowly Pirates. So Nationals, again, another one of the teams that are likely rebuilding for the most of the season. They got Juan Soto, pretty much the highlight, and they did win a series against Atlanta. But again, we're early in the season. Some teams are going to take a little bit to get going, whereas other teams are going to start a little bit hotter than where we expect them to go. But I'm not going to hold too much into it so far. But at the same time, I do want to take some consideration. So I do put Washington ahead of these 4 other teams, but overall, I do put them in the bottom of the National League East. Next up, number 25, we got the Pittsburgh Pirates, 1-2 against St. Louis, 1-1 against the Cubs, and then they went 3-1 against the Nationals. So the 3-1 made me hobble up a little bit here. And Pittsburgh, they've done all right. They've, I think, so far beaten expectations for me, and at least in the offensive side of the ball, they looked pretty good at home in their one series against the Cubs. They took a nice win. And took a nice win off of St. Louis along the way, but still bottom of the league in 25. Number 24, got the Texas Rangers, 1-2 against Toronto, 0-2 against Colorado, and then 1-3 against the Angels. They may have spent a lot of money in this offseason, but they haven't won a series yet. They got swept in Coors, and then a division matchup with the Angels. Didn't do so well. And when they played Toronto, their pitching gave up a lot of runs. Their offense did save them the 1 win, but overall, I do think they're a little bit ahead of the A's right now, maybe because they bought it, but overall, not a playoff team at this rate. Number 23, kind of basically where Kansas City has been all ever since the power rankings started, 2-2 against Cleveland, 1-2 against Detroit this past series that we just went on. And they postponed today, and they're going to go into next week. But Kansas City kind of just doing an average thing as they tend to do. Number 22, we got Detroit, 1-2 against the White Sox, 1-2 against the Red Sox. And then they did beat Kansas City in the 3 out of 4 games. Both these teams are interchangeable, really. I've given Detroit a little bit of the edge. Obviously, they won 2-1, so that's where the edge is. But overall, both these teams, they're trying to make that step forward in a division that maybe has a little bit of wiggle room between the bottom and middle towards the upper. But they need some help from their pitching, who just hasn't seemed to keep the offenses of the teams down early in games. Walk-off on opening day was huge for them. Number 21, we got the Cleveland Guardians. Again, I didn't update the logo. I completely forgot until this exact second. We're going to put that there. You guys can say it, but it's Guardians. They were a little bit surprised. 2-2 against Kansas City, 2-0 against Cincinnati before getting swept by San Francisco over the Giants. I think the thing that sets them apart from these other two teams is they at least have the pitching. The offense was expected to be a lot worse, but Jose Ramirez has been monster, at least for the beginning of the season so far. So a little bit of credit to them. Whether they can keep it up, I doubt it. Whether the offense can keep it up at all. Number 20, we got the Colorado Rockies, 2-1 against the Dodgers, 2-0 against Texas Rangers, and then this past weekend they played the Cubs to a 2-2 series tie. So I got them number 20. Overall, they've performed. It's been a roller coaster of a season. They beat the Dodgers, beat the Rangers, and then they did all right against the top Cubs. But I need to see another week of this kind of performance to move them up a little bit further. I'm going to cap them here because we just haven't seen it in consistency. And this division is so strong. They have 3 solid teams that are going to have to pass to make a playoff push. So that's a big hill for them to climb. Number 19, team that just played, the Cubs. Cubs have surprised me so far this season. 2-1 against Milwaukee, 1-1 against Pittsburgh. So they're pretty much 500 baseball, but a couple of their guys have stepped up, specifically Suzuki coming in clutch early on against Milwaukee in that series. Cubs, what can you say? They're at least contending. Zach Steele stepping up. Hendricks had a good game. Looking like they're going to be a little bit better than I expected. Who knows? They might work their way up into fighting for playoff contention, but right now, number 19 is where they're at. Number 18, maybe not enough credit. 1-2 against San Fran, 0-2 against LA Angels, and then 1-2 against Philadelphia. 3-1 against Philly this past weekend. That's a big series for them against a division rival. Not holding a lot of weight in that one series because the other 2 did not go so well for them. And it looks like one of the losses against Philly, Zach Wheeler making his debut, went a little rough. So we'll see. We're going to keep an eye on how they continue to going forward. Next up, we got Boston, 1-2 against the Yankees, 2-1 against Detroit, and 2-1 against Minnesota. With a postponement and one more game coming tomorrow. Sorry, not postponed, but another game coming tomorrow against Minnesota. That one's going to play. But so far, Boston's got to be a little disappointed coming out of the gate. They're in a stacked division. They were hoping to probably be a little bit hotter against the Yankees, maybe against Detroit and Minnesota. But they've had a tough schedule to start things off, and they're staying afloat, and they're staying in the hunt. Right, exactly where I expect them to be, fighting for a playoff spot all year long. Number 16, we got their division rival, the Rays, 3-0 against Baltimore, 1-3 against Oakland. That one hurt. And then they lost a series to the White Sox. But, tough division. A team that's probably going to come back down to earth a little bit after last year and take a step back with their pitching and their offense. And they can't be too happy with how they performed against Oakland, but we're 3 series in. So, again, same kind of story as Boston. I expect them compete all season long. 15, we got the LA Angels. 1-3 against Houston, 2-0 against Miami, and then we also got 3-1 against Texas. So after a rough first series against Houston, they came out and they've been turned it around since, so I put them back up right on the borderline again, playoff spot. I expect them to kind of be here minimum. If this team, Ohtani, Trout, and them can get going, they're top of the West, potentially top 10 team in the league. So keep an eye on them to move on up. Number 14, 2-1 against Oakland, 1-2 against the Mets, and 1-3 against Miami. Didn't punish Philly too much, considering they had a little rough spell there against two division teams. But they did go drop a little bit. I'm concerned because it's Philadelphia and they always seem to find a way to crap the bed. But for now, the division's wide open. Mets had a good start, but Atlanta's been struggling. Other teams have been struggling. So borderline playoff team, at least for now. I could see them dropping 13. San Diego, 3-1 at Arizona, 1-2 San Fran, and then splitting 2-2 with Atlanta. San Diego, I haven't got to watch a whole lot of them. Been a little quiet for me to not pay a lot of attention to them, but they've picked up their wins. They took care of business against Arizona, lost, and then they're tied. They're playing teams that match. It's a long season. Whether they can keep it a little steady early, unlike last year, they ramped early and crashed. I think if they can just be steady, they'll find themselves in the playoffs with the kind of roster that they have. Number 12, we got the Twins, 2-2 against Seattle. Got swept 0-2 to the Dodgers, and then Boston, they're up 2-1 this past weekend, again playing tomorrow. Twins, a little bit of concern here, but they're just kind of steady as she goes. Not a whole lot. Again, another team I haven't watched too much of early on. Number 11, giving them a little more credit than last week. We got the San Francisco Giants, 2-1 Miami, 2-1 San Diego, and then they swept Cleveland. Again, I did this last year, and I'm doing it again this year. I'm starting them a little low and slowly moving up, but I'm moving them up faster than last year. It took them a while for me to get them to that top line, but number 11 for them now. They're fire. Just concerns. The division's stacked. Whether they can keep it consistent. The offense is a little bit of worrisome for me, but the pitching is lights out again. It seems like so far this year with Carlos Rondon, both stars being awesome. Number 10, Seattle, 2-2 against Miami, 1-2 against Chicago, and then they just had a good series this past weekend, going 2-1 against Houston. So Seattle just sitting there. Probably second best team in the West in my books right now. These teams all can be pretty interchangeable, even from like 18 to like 8. It's so tight right now, and this is just going off high, kind of how I had them at the start. Seattle, I had them a little higher than these other ones, so they're going to maintain that for now. Number 9, we got the Cardinals. Not super satisfied with the weekend series, but they went 2-1 against Pittsburgh, 1-0 against Kansas City because there was a bunch of postponements, and then they went 1-2 against Milwaukee, 2-2 against Milwaukee this past weekend, who is actually going to be right ahead of them. But Cardinals, their pitching has me a little bit concerned. Wainwright didn't look good his second start. The depth isn't there, and they didn't really address it in the offseason, so I'm a little concerned, but I do expect them to be right there in the hunt with Milwaukee for division. Number 8, we have the New York Yankees, 2-1 against Boston, 2-2 against Toronto, but then they lost to Baltimore, 1-2. Again, division, they don't have Baltimore's number the way the Rays seem to. So the Yankees, number 8, still think the powerhouse and the pitching just so strong. They're a top team for sure. Number 7, we got the Atlanta Braves. I'm dropping them out of the first row. It's just, they did not perform well this week. 2-2 against Cincinnati, 1-2 against Washington, 2-2 against San Diego. Putting them still in number 7, World Series champs. Had them a lot higher at the beginning of the season because of that. And I'm not going to hold 3 weeks against them, but I do have a lot of concerns and not enough to consider them a top 6 team right now. So the Braves dropping down. And honestly, we could see them drop down to 10th pretty quick if they don't turn it around. Number 6. Sorry, I just want to make sure something wasn't right here. Yeah, number 6. We got the Milwaukee Brewers. After 1-2 against the Cubs, they turned it back around. 2-1 against Baltimore, 2-2 against St. Louis, but they turned it around and managed to tie that one up. So Milwaukee, a little cold of a bats early in the season, but they started to heat up a bit against the Cardinals. And I still think their pitching edges them out in that division and makes them a really strong contender in the entire National League. Number 5, we have the White Sox 2-1 against Detroit, 2-1 against Seattle, 2-1 against Tampa Bay. So they've won every series so far. Running 6-6, expected to crush this division. Really, they should walk away with this division unless Minnesota somehow gives them a run for the money, but I don't suspect that. So Chicago looks good out of the gate, and as expected. Number 4, we got Toronto Blue Jays 2-1 against Texas, 2-2 against the Yankees, and then 2-1 again against the A's. So they took care of business. They beat the teams they're supposed to beat, and they tied on the road the Yankees team. And they actually had a chance to win that series 3-1 going in the last day, but they got shut out. I think the Jays got to be happy with the way this season started. A lot of expectations on this team. Could have been a lot of pressure if they stumbled. They didn't stumble, and I expect them to just gain confidence as the season goes on. Jays are a top contender at this point. Number 3, we have the New York Mets, 3-1 against Washington, 2-1 against Philly, and 2-1 against Arizona. So they beat up on 2 lowly teams. They beat Philly, but they have a strong team. Their bats they're going. Their pitching is all around depth. Should be a good team. So as long as the Mets avoid the injury bug like they had last year, they're a top team, and I'm giving them credit early. I want to be here early. That I'm calling it. Number 2, still Houston. I'm not going to hold too much against the struggle they had this last series. They lost to Seattle 1-2, but they started against the Angels 3-1. It was a big, strong start. Split the middle one with Arizona. 1 game apiece, but again, it's early. This team, to me, has the most depth pitching. Verlander's looking great. I think Houston's the team to beat, especially in the West. And number 1, no big surprise. We got the Dodgers. They're on a 6-game winning streak. Minnesota, Cincinnati taking all 6 games from them, and after losing to Colorado, but it's the Dodgers. Can't say much, but the Dodgers are the top team right now. They're stacked. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know what you agree with, who you disagree with. Some of these teams, again, I'm punishing some teams more than others than I probably should, but after about 2-3 weeks, we'll have a pretty clear idea of how these power ranks go. Let me know what you guys think. We'll see you guys up there. Next power rankings. Peace.